So again, welcome to the Communicating with Robots workshop. I'm excited you could join us. As we all get settled onto Zoom here, let's answer this question in the chat. What is one task you think AI could help with in your day-to-day work? I will pause for just a moment and see some of those answers rolling in. Dina, if you could highlight those as they come in for me.
All right, we've got organizing thoughts, tasks, reminders. Yes, Megan, that is a good one.
Excellent. Right, pause for just a little bit, see if anybody else has any ideas, but if you don't, maybe you'll get some from this presentation today. So.
Ooh, robotic code.
Okay.
It's a good one, Patrick.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's a more unique one, so I'm excited for that. So
Yeah.
keep those answers rolling in. For those of you I have not met, my name is Chelsea Summerlin. I am the ICFL's Digital Skills Library Consultant. I'm joined today by a couple of other ICFL staff members. We've got Allison, Dina, Doug, Dylan, and William. I will let them introduce themselves here real quick.
I can jump in first. I'm Allison Meyer, the Public Library Program Specialist here.
I'm Dylan Baker, the Deputy State Librarian.
I'm Dina Brown, the Adult Services Library Consultant.
Doug Baker, I'm the Library Technology Consultant.
I'm William Lamb. I'm the E-Services Program Consultant or Supervisor.
Awesome. William's forgotten his job title, but that's okay. All right, so here's our agenda for today. We're going to have a quick introduction, which we are almost through, and then we're going to set the stage. We're going to talk about some basics for prompting using generative AI tools, and then I'll do a walkthrough of prompting with some common tools. Today, we're going to be using Adobe AI. You can use Canva, Duck.AI, ChatGPT, LibraryRobot, Gemini, and CoPilot. After those demos, we are going to split into breakout rooms where you can practice prompting in small groups with your chosen tool. We will have 2 breakout room sessions, so you'll have the opportunity to test different tools. We are going to have an ICFL staff member in each of the rooms to help guide you or answer questions. Dina is going to throw a link to the handout in the chat. Feel free to follow along with that, and we will use it when we get into those breakout rooms. We are going to have time at the end to do a quick wrap up, and I will share a feedback survey with you all. Today's session is 1 hour and 15 minutes, and we are going to get you out of here by 3:15 p.m. Mountain Time. Breakout rooms will not be recorded, but the main room, where we are right now, is being recorded. Everyone who registered will receive a link to the recording and the handout after today's workshop. If you have questions, please throw those into the chat. We will try and answer them as we go. Dina will raise them if she sees them. But if you've got a more involved question on a specific tool, you can also raise that in your breakout room. Alrighty, before we dive in, let's do a little bit of level setting. Today's workshop is part 2 of our mini AI series. You can catch the replay of part 1 on our YouTube channel. Dina will again throw the link to that in the chat. There, we did an overview of AI, talked about some use cases, and dove into information literacy and ethical considerations. I encourage you to watch that if you haven't. I won't rehash all of the same things here, but I am going to point out that just because you can use AI for various tasks doesn't necessarily mean that you should. AI tools are in their infancy, and at this point in their development, they have a lot of problems. They display biases, they make stuff up, they use data in questionable ways, and they use a lot of electricity. And, like the rest of the internet, bad actors are taking these tools and running wild with them, using them to harass, to scam, to lie, and, in general, to create havoc. With all that in mind, when you dive into the breakout rooms to practice with your chosen tool, I want you to think critically. If you're asking AI to answer a question, ask it something you already know and verify its results. And ask yourself if the work you must put in to verify it is more work than just doing the task yourself. Generative AI tools have some uses, but they are not all-purpose everything machines that are smarter than humans, despite what some marketers may be telling you. Generative AI is fancy computer math dressed up to appear intelligent, but it is not intelligent, and the math breaks a lot. Okay, mini rant over, and we will now talk about some prompting basics. An AI prompt, is a question, command, or statement. You, as the user, enter your prompt into an AI tool in the hopes that the AI will generate a useful output. The goal is to provide the AI with the necessary context or instructions so the output matches your request. For today, we're going to use the CLEAR method by Delandra Seals to talk about prompting. CLEAR stands for context, language simplicity, explain the format or use examples, audience, and relevance. So, C for context. Provide background. What is the task? Who is it for? What is the setting? L for language simplicity. Use clear, concise language. Avoid jargon. Don't say ILL when you mean interlibrary loan. E is for explain the format or use examples. Specify the desired output. For example, a list, a summary, an email draft, a logo, or a flyer. And then A is for audience. Who is the prompt intended to serve? Maybe it's teens, patrons, coworkers, or boards. And lastly, R for relevance. Ensure the prompt aligns with your task or the user's need. This is the critical thinking piece. Why am I using AI? Is it the best option? Couple of other prompting things to consider here. Generative AI is pretty much never going to give you the same result twice. Its predictive model is simply too volatile for consistency. So if you like the result, you should save it. Be careful of uploading files or documents. Whatever tool you are using is likely training on your data, so you do not want to give it anything that should stay private. And then if your chosen prompt doesn't work the first time, try a different tool or change a few words. Prompting can be a really iterative process, and you may need to tweak and try again several times before you get the desired result. A lot of the tools provide their own guides on how to write the best prompts for that specific tool. Those may be helpful if you're getting into something more complex or if the model just is not generating what you want it to. So from here, we're going to do a high-level overview of each of our tools. If you have any privacy concerns, I really recommend you dig into the privacy policies for each tool. Most of them are about the same, but it is important to see what data they are collecting from you and how that data will be used. We are going to use Adobe Express or Firefly for our graphic design example. You can also use Canva, but the state's contract is with Adobe, so that's what I'm going to use. Allison will be in the graphic design breakout room, and she has a lot of experience with Canva if that's what you're using. So Adobe and Canva are some of the top tools for graphic design. They've recently added some AI features that are designed to make it easier for you to create. Both are trained on the data from their users. If you do not want them to train on your designs, you can turn it off in the privacy settings of your account. You will need an account for each of these. Both have quite a bit more functionality on a paid plan than versus with the free version. For this example, I will be on the paid version of Adobe Express, just so you get an idea. The primary difference with Adobe, at least, is the number of generations that it will let me do per month. They also have extra settings that will help their AI tool narrow down on the request, which I will demonstrate on Adobe here in a sec. Our next tool is Duck.AI, which is from the DuckDuckGo browser company. It's one that emphasizes privacy. You do not have to have an account to use these tools, but they do have access to different AI databases, and you can switch in between tools. Some of the tools are free, and some of them require a subscription. Depending on your tool, you may notice different features, and when you switch between tools, Duck.AI will give you an overview of the features, and I will demonstrate that here in a sec. ChatGPT is next, beginning to call it the Kleenex of generative AI, so maybe you've heard of it. It's owned by OpenAI. It's yet another quote-unquote all-purpose AI tool, so it will do text and image generation and a whole bunch of other stuff. Again, there are free and paid versions. And this one sort of uniquely has a voice mode where you can choose different personalities and have different conversations with ChatGPT. I tried it once and it gave me the creeps, but you're welcome to continue testing it. We're going to demonstrate using it for increasing accessibility. Next is LibraryRobot, which is a group of AI tools designed by Reed Helper from the College of Southern Idaho. It's focused on common library uses for AI, including finding and summarizing books, creating programs, finding Library of Congress records, and more. LibraryRobot has models running on ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Boodlebox. For our example, I'm going to use Bookfinder with ChatGPT. Next, we have Gemini, which is Google's AI model, another all-purpose AI. Google developed its own model, so this one does not run on OpenAI or ChatGPT data or resources. It is integrated into Google's products, including Sheets, Docs, and Gmail. However, using it in the integrated mode does require a paid subscription. And lastly, we have Microsoft CoPilot, our final all-purpose AI tool. This one does rely primarily on OpenAI data, but they have recently started adding in different data sources, including expanding their own data collection. Like Google, Microsoft is embedding CoPilot into the entire Office suite for a fee. For our example, I am just going to use the online version of the chat feature. All right, I'm going to stop sharing and reshare my screen and move on to our demo portion here. So give me just a moment. All righty, hopefully you all are seeing the Adobe Express window. Thank you, Dina. All right, so this is the landing page for Adobe Express, and we are going to practice creating a Facebook prompt. You would think the AI assistant would be a good place to start, but apparently since I have a paid plan, I can't use that. So we're going to go over to social media and ads, and you'll notice that it just changed some of our template options down here. Canva does a similar thing as you navigate through. I'm going to do a Facebook post, so I'm going to click on Facebook, and then I'm going to click on Facebook post. So from here, we're getting to our generic base editing software here where we can add the base templates that we have. But for our example, of course, we are going to hit this Generate Template button. And I am going to paste this prompt in here. So this prompt is to draft a Facebook post to promote a library program on basic computer skills. The audience is older adults unfamiliar with computers. We're going to give it a minute to load and to see what sorts of fun things it has created for us. Here we go. Okay. Well, this might be slightly better than it normally does when I test this. So we have, if it's a premium model, we have the little crown here, and not premiums are those ones. I will say some of these look pretty okay. That one, color contrast might not be fully accessible, but it looks pretty decent. This one is maybe my least favorite. That's clearly an AI generated person that doesn't look quite AI generated. This guy looks very terrified of his sewing machine, which is not a computer. So we might have had a few issues and glitches, but if I wanted to work with it, and maybe, Michelle, on the, can you prompt it to apply ADA standards? But it might not understand what you mean by that, because it is just going to take a guess, and it won't guess correctly. They are not very good at accessibility. But if I wanted to fix the problems that they created for me, I could click in it, and then we can begin doing our editing process, fixing the color contrast, and all of those fun things. This editor looks a lot like Canva's, but I'm not going to dig into that too deeply. So that's a really brief overview of Duck.AI, or of Adobe. Now we're moving on to Duck.AI.
And hold on a second, Chelsea.
Yep.
Lori also had a question while you were in there asking, so we don't have to worry about copyright with AI, correct?
Ooh, I would say we probably should worry about copyright with AI. So It kind of depends on what you're doing. If you're trying to copyright it, it's very unclear whether you can or whether you can't. If it's fully created with AI, you cannot copyright it. If you messed with it a little bit, maybe you can, maybe you can't, depends on who you ask. But for the images and the things that it produces, that's a little bit source dependent. So Adobe's model is a little bit safer, I would say, than Canva's because they are pulling for their training mostly from existing stock photos that they do have the licensing to use. But other tools, Google Gemini, CoPilot, ChatGPT, all of these have very opaque places that they're pulling their training material from, and whether that material was obtained legally, it's really hard to say, and the Copyright Office and the Supreme Court have not made a final decision on it, so I would be cautious about copyright with AI, especially in relation to images and flyers that you're creating. Thank you, Dina, for catching that question. So Duck.AI has a basic chat model here. I am on the Haiku 3.5 here, but you can see I can switch different free models and different advanced models, and it will tell me kind of what they are good for. So Haiku, web search, general purpose AI, high built-in moderation, and this one is created by Anthropic. So for this little prompt, we are going to have it suggest names for a library program. I'd like to run a program for kids about bird migration with a special focus on ducks. Can I have about 10 suggestions? And you will see that it has given me some suggestions, but apparently it's also had some glorious errors that it has performed here for us. So very helpful. It's given me a few additional thoughts that maybe I didn't need it to give me. And I will let you all read a few of these feathered flyers, flyways and highways, and let you determine if you think that those are good names or not. But you can also test, this one is kind of fun. You can run the same prompt through different times to see on their different tools. And so maybe ChatGPT is feeling more creative than Claude today, and you can always test the same prompt over multiple tools without changing platforms, which is one of the benefits for this one. Some of these will let you upload images, but none of them let you upload documents at this point in their iteration.
Chelsea, can you show again how you got to the other AI tool options here if people did want to play around with trying the same prompt in a different tool?
So I would open a new chat, and then once you do that, your little model is selected up here, and then you could click on your new one, start new chat, and then you would paste that same prompts back in there. Thank you, Dina. All right, we are going to hit over to ChatGPT, which has a very similar looking feature to Duck.AI. So for this one, I have uploaded this image of our unofficial mascot, Mr. Fluffles here. This is a flyer that I created. And because it is a flyer saved as a PNG, it is inaccessible in its current format. So what I want ChatGPT to do is to transcribe the text on this image. I want it to keep the formatting, and I want the full text to add to a blog post on the library's website. So here it goes. It has helpfully given me some alt text if I wanted that. It has mostly kept the spacing and all of that, and it is asking me if I would like to format it as an HTML or a Markdown. Occasionally, it also asks me if I want to format it as a blog post, and it always fills in a whole bunch of details when I have it do that, and some of those details it made up whole cloth, so very entertaining to watch it go through that. But it is a really useful tool if you have a bunch of flyers and things, and that transcription takes you a while there. I found that AI tools are quite good for that use there. That's ChatGPT. It has a whole bunch more features and settings if you really dig into it, but we'll just start with the basic here. And then we are going to switch over to LibraryRobot. So this is the landing page for that. And then there's the tools and some instructions for them. And then if they have a different iteration like Perplexity or Boodlebox, it will be listed below. We are going to switch back to our friend ChatGPT, and we are going to have it suggest 5 books similar to James Patterson I want the books to be fast-paced without a lot of on-page violence. So the books and the benefit of using this versus just ChatGPT are that it is supposed to pull the WorldCat records for these and show me libraries in the area where I might be able to access these books. You'll notice that it did ask me to find the WorldCat records, and I'm going to say yes. Show me the WorldCat records. So sometimes it will pull these automatically. And often when it does, it links to things that are not the WorldCat records for these books. So this is always an adventure to see if it actually found the correct WorldCat records. One time for, I think, possibly the Kennel Club, maybe even, it gave me a link to a book on Netherlandish sculpture. So hit and miss, but we're going to see if the Camel Club pulled up. It does look like this might be in the audiobook on CD, but at least I'm sort of within the range here of correct links on WorldCat that it pulled up. So that's a good use of it when it works. It is helpful to be able to find those records fast. Or it also gave me a little bit of some whys, some pacing, and the violence level. I haven't read these, and I would be a little bit suspicious if its recommendations were fully accurate for that. Some of these authors, maybe, some of them maybe not. So it's a good place to start, but it is probably not the end-all be-all of book recommendations, and some other tools like Novelist, which you can get on Lily, might be a little bit better for these. All right, on to our friend Google here. So again, almost the exact same layout as ChatGPT and Duck.AI. You've just got your simple chat window. I'm on their free version here. So we're going to have Google Gemini generate us an image of doctors. I'd like the image to advertise telehealth services at the library. The audience is adults unfamiliar with telehealth services. Oh boy. Okay, the last few times it has put flyers into these pictures, which is driving me kind of cuckoo. It can't spell very well when it's creating words in pictures, and its grammar and design skills might be a little bit lacking. I'm not seeing any overt spelling errors this time, though the kerning on telehealth there, just the spacing in between the letters, is a little confusing. But we do have doctors and we have a bunch of devices, so I guess it's clear that this is a computer service. Free sessions for adults. It could also be for kids. I didn't exactly specify with that. And yeah, but if I don't like this giant banner that it hung from the ceiling here, I could ask it to remove it, and it might put something back, it might not. And you can, if you have access, Lori, to editing software, you can download the image and then edit it from there. But if you don't have like Photoshop editing, you're not going to be able to edit these images. You can't just click in and then change the words on the flyer here. For that, you're kind of better off prompting it again and seeing if it would just remove that or change it. And sometimes it understands, quote unquote, what you're trying to get it to do, and sometimes it does not. Kind of hit and miss. For that, definitely an iterative process. For the image editing stuff, Canva or Adobe would be better choices if you want to directly edit without having Photoshop, which is a whole nother class in and of itself to use that one.
And Chelsea, I think that's a good example of where, and with Lori's question, asking yourself, am I going to spend more time arguing with this AI bot trying to get it to spell this stuff right versus downloading this image and, maybe it's putting a text block over it and kind of adding your own text in there. So thinking about how much time that's going to take you and how frustrated you're going to be.
Yes, 100%. Gemini, the reason I demonstrated this one for images, it does, in my experience, typically do the best job with people, though I am noticing that this doctor here might not actually have a real hand there, but typically it has the most realistic looking people. Canva's people that it generates and Adobe's, you saw the older adult that it generated earlier. doesn't look like a person. These look like people. And the doctors in the image are almost entirely fabricated. They might be pulling from real stock photos or LinkedIn pictures or whatever, but these are not real people, so to speak. Though sometimes they do bear a striking resemblance to real people, depending on how you prompt it. That's a good question, Lori. Yes, and I like that, Christopher. Using AI as a brainstorming versus a final product is definitely something I recommend too. It is much better at the initial idea generation than the final product stage. All right, on to our final tool here. This is Microsoft CoPilot. It has these little pre-done prompts here, previous conversations, creation. For this one though, I'm just wanted to format this into a table. So this is like a book list for like an adult reading club. And if I didn't want to retype all of that, because I definitely don't, it can do a nice table. So it's given me my month, my title, my author, my genre, and then there was some optional reading, which it has added into another column here, which is also awesome that it pulled that. It always asks me if I would like this exported into a downloadable format like Excel or PDF. And sure, that sounds fabulous. It has literally never worked, which might just be a state restriction that I have for this model. Yours might work just fine. Mine never does. So keep that in mind. I can copy and paste it into a Word document or Excel if I wanted to do that, but my likelihood of getting it to download, at least for me, is not going to happen. So that is our demo here. And I am going to do a little bit of a stop and reshare again here as we get prepped to go into our breakout rooms. Give me 1 second. Okay, so with that little bit of a demo here, what we're going to do next is dive into those breakout rooms. So you'll be able to choose a room. It will pop up with the options available, and you can hit join and then join again. So the goal here is to practice using one of the tools we discussed. Come up with a task that you would like to do in your everyday work. Could be something you put in the chat earlier, or if you're like me and you like to test the limits of things, you can try and quote unquote break the system and get it to do some very silly or very funny things. You're going to have 15 minutes in each room, and we will have an ICFL staff member in the rooms for questions. We are going to have 2 opportunities, so you will be able to test different tools. Here in a moment, William is going to pop up those Zoom things, so you will be able to choose the room that you would like to join, and it might make you hit join twice to get you fully into the room. But we are off to the races. All right, I think our trickle has slowed down enough that we can come back. So I'm going to call on the ICFL staff members that were in those rooms and have them share something that was discussed or a prompt or something that was used in the group. And we are going to start with Allison and Adobe. What was happening for you?
Yes, we were playing around. We were kind of comparing Canva generations and Adobe Express. And I think I might have lost, sadly, the Canva one, but I'll share my screen. We had a very specific prompt, and I will say that the Adobe Express ones are a little scarier. Can we see my screen? Yes? Okay. We
Yes.
asked for a flyer for a Dr. Seuss event at the library Thursday night. Include an illustration based on Seuss. And these were the options. So a little scary. When we put the same prompt into Canva, it actually did generate like very Seuss inspired kinds of illustrations. We sort of determined that that was going to be the better option to play with, iterate from there. But we talked about in both cases, like you're going to have to do still a lot of editing to really make the design work from a branding and accessibility standpoint. And I will stop sharing if I can see the little screen. It disappeared.
Of course.
Or you can kick me off. I don't know why it's gone away.
Okay. I will work on
Yeah.
kicking you off.
Kick me off.
Uh, maybe. Anyway, I will work on that there we
Okay,
go.
there we go. Thank you.
Somebody figured it out. Okay, thank you for sharing those. They were sufficiently horrifying, I would say. So I
Yes.
appreciate that. All right, Dylan with Duck.AI.
Yeah, we had a good conversation just about how we're kind of using AI so far, and some of the, that Duck AI was new to some folks, which was kind of great to be able to kind of show that, oh, you don't need an account and you can switch between a bunch of different models. But we talked about some of the advantages of using it to help generate when you need to do thank you letters or speeches. Giving you kind of a starting spot it can be really helpful, and for coaching. It helps you kind of generate some ideas and get you moving rather than looking at a blank page or recycling something that you've used 20 times before.
Yes, definitely great in that idea generation stage. All right, Doug and ChatGPT.
Yeah, we had a couple different discussions going. One was kind of harkening back to what we were talking about earlier, is if getting the AI to give you an answer is more work than just doing the work yourself. Patrick had shared that he had written some code with AI, but then had to do a lot of work to reduce that code down. But he also mentioned that that he kind of needed the AI to help him get from point A to point B in the code, and then he could refine that code where maybe he wouldn't have been able to do it on his own. But he also mentioned that where he did just do it on his own, it probably would have been quicker to write the code. And then we also had an interesting discussion about sometimes AI, it seems, is being inaccurate in listing dates of things. So it was brought up that we had it list all the times the White House had been remodeled, um, and it had only gone up to about 2002, and so we then kind of compared it to some other models. So I had it list ChatGPT list all the major earthquakes for the last 50 years, which I also did with Gemini, and they were both giving different answers and would only go up to certain dates. So um, kind of interesting there, and goes back to maybe the info you're getting from the AI is not necessarily the most accurate or up to date.
For sure. Yeah, AI is maybe not the best research buddy I have found. Great for idea generation, just sort of the making stuff up stage, and less great for the accurate information. Likes to hallucinate. All right, Dina and LibraryRobot.
Yeah. So we proved that if you can think of it, there's a book about it, because our prompt was a non-religious romance novel that includes pets as a subject. There's a whole series, y'all. And like, and then we asked it to give us the world cat record, and it did take us to those. Um, uh, so that was fun. And talking about some similarities to novelist, but then also to the whole point of like, right, but where is it pulling this data from? How does it tie into other systems? Does it? Some pros and cons there. So like, again, maybe a good starting point, but not a good final destination. And then we also tried the program assistant, and one of the folks in our room is looking at maybe hosting a live and die well club for older adults. And so all we typed in was ideas on hosting a live and die well club for adults in the library. And it came up with like some like overall goal of the program, a variety of format options, a sample 6-month program plan, like if you did it every month, some language for outreach, supply budget, other like add-ons that you might think about as far as tying it into other resources of the library. And then ended with like, would you like a full program guide, a meeting script, a flyer? So had some additional questions there. And then we took one of the ideas and asked it to expand on that, which it seemed like it did a pretty good job of. So again, was a pretty decent thought partner in that development. But we weren't asking it to like, hey, can you find local people in my community that could come and be a presenter, which would be, I think, maybe pushing the limits a little bit of what it could do, but would be an interesting, next step to try with it.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Dina, and thanks for testing 2 different tools on LibraryRobot. It's cool to see, especially that programming one. I think those tools that are more specifically designed for that can get you better results than using ChatGPT or any of them without those parameters built into the model. That does help narrow it down. So in our CoPilot and Gemini room, we discussed a lot of various things, talked about a lot of inconsistencies that you can get with AI, and kind of talked about how that predictive model works or doesn't work, and why it can be so inconsistent, and why it is so eager to give you any answer to a question, even if it isn't pulling from any of the correct data sources, or those data sources don't exist, or it randomly stopped pulling at 2002 for some reason. It's definitely got some kinks that will continue to be worked out with that math behind there. Talked about that, and then talked about some of the hallucinations that it likes to come up with folks requesting books that don't exist, and authors getting books attributed to them that also don't exist, and kind of the awkwardness that can cause for folks as they go through and they work on these things. So with that, I think we are ready for our round 2 of our breakout rooms. So I'll have William launch those again, and feel free to jump into a different room and test a new tool. Right. I think that is us all back here. So in these last couple of minutes, have everybody kind of do a speed run of their share. And then Dina, if you wouldn't mind putting the feedback survey in the chat. You're already on it. Love that. Thank you. All right, Allison, go.
We were playing with some video AI options in Canva, which was interesting. I would say my recommendation, just record your own voiceover instead of using AI generated, but that is an option in Canva. And then just playing around a little bit more with like some of the text and design options. I think I'm calling Mike out, mentioned like playing around with something and having it say like offering like all these resources that perhaps the library wouldn't have be able to offer. So, another illustration of like, you're going to have to probably do some editing, even if it's great for starting ideas for designs and text.
Perfect. Thanks, Allison. All right, Dylan and Duck.AI.
Yeah, thanks, Chelsea. Lisa and I just chatted a little bit about AI and went over Duck AI. Talked about, I tried to show off the image upload feature and getting it to transcribe, and then had to proceed to argue with the AI about getting it to try to transcribe the image. So that was a good demo in progress, but we talked about how you could maybe use it to help with generating alt text for some images, if you need a starting spot. And I know a lot of tools kind of help you with that these days. It was kind of wordy for alt text, but it's not a bad starting spot. And it's just fun to also try like a prompt and then use it in try the different models all from one interface. So you can see, oh, this model is really wordy. This model is a little more succinct. This model likes to use tables. This model likes to use bullet points. So you get different flavors, and then might help you decide ultimately which tool you like to use the most for which purposes.
Perfect. Thanks, Dylan. I do like arguing with it. It likes to tell me that it won't do that because it didn't want to violate any copyright. And I was like, that is bold coming from you, but thank you for that. All right, Doug, ChatGPT.
Well, I was very lonely
Oh,
in
no.
mine. It was just me. So to make myself feel better, I had ChatGPT tell me how awesome I am. And I won't read you everything, but suffice to say, it made me feel better about myself. And then to continue on, I had it write me a story about how cool I am. And I won't read the story because it's not great and kind of boring, but the title is The Legend of Doug the Unflappable.
That's not a terrible title, Doug. You should get a t-shirt that says that. That seems perfect.
I can't wait to see the illustrations.
Yeah, maybe we can get Canva to help us with that. Okay, well, we're sorry that Doug was lonely. Nobody wanted to learn about the Kleenex, apparently. That's life. LibraryRobot, Dina.
Everyone's probably experimented with the Kleenex a lot. Is probably part of it. Yeah. Doug, that is so interesting though. Like, and has me thinking about some of the like mental health implications, positive and negative. And so that's hilarious. Like now I want to test that and see what it does. So we had an interesting discussion. We were trying to be a little cheeky, and for Bookfinder, we because part of our discussion was about how collection development departments are struggling with accidentally buying AI generated content, whether physical or digital, which is a huge bummer. And so it came up with a list of titles, and we asked it, are any of these books AI generated? And it was emphatically, these are all well-established human authors. I didn't have a chance to go and check all of them, but you know, uh, and then we were wondering, can you use AI to help find AI titles within a list of like catalog records and such? Was one of the things we started talking about, and we tried doing that, but it interpreted our question as, oh, you want me to come up with titles for you. Here you go. Here's a bunch of made up titles for you. I hope you like them. But we were like, oh, but wouldn't that be handy if you could use the tool that's creating all this garbage to help you identify the garbage?
Absolutely, that would be handy. I've heard mixed stories of success with trying it for that. We are at 3:15, so I will not give us the co-pilot summary here. But thank you all so much for coming today. I really appreciate your time and attention. And fill out that feedback survey if you haven't already, and you will get the recording and the link to the handout as well. But thank you again, and I hope to see you at the next tech workshop real soon.